Views, opinions, and content of this show are those of the host, guests, and callers. They do not necessarily reflect those of Local Matters Broadcasting, LLC, its owners, partners, affiliates, assigns, or heirs. Having said that, it's now time to say good morning, St. Johns County. Welcome to the weekly radio show of the St. Johns County Council on Aging, better known in our community as the COA. We are your local nonprofit agency who for the past 50 years has been leading and advocating for the dignity, independence, health, and community involvement of older St. Johns County residents. I'm Brian Robinson, Program Director for COA, broadcasting to you live from the studio of WFOY 102.1 FM, your local radio station for news, sports, and talk. Before we get into our show, let me remind everyone that if you have a question, a comment, or a suggestion for a radio show topic, please send your email to radio@coasjc.org. And if you have a question during today's show while you're listening, you can also send it in. I got my email open right here, my laptop right next to me. So radio@coasjc.org if you have a question for our guest here this morning. So this morning I am joined by two people who love the seniors of St. Johns County, one of whom serves on our board of directors at COA. And they have been invited on our show this morning to talk about issues pertaining to seniors in St. Johns County. Rob and Kendell Hardwick, good morning to you both.
Oh, good morning, Brian.
Thank you.
Great to have you on the show. Thank you for taking time out of your very, very busy schedule to come on here and talk about matters pertaining to seniors. That is why we're here. That's what we do at St. Johns County Council on Aging, making sure that we take care of them. But though it's very highly unlikely that there is anybody out there listening today that doesn't know who you are, in case there is,
Sure.
if you would be so kind, both of you just introduce yourselves and tell our listeners about yourselves.
Sure. Hi, Kendell Hardwick, and joined here with my husband, and we've been married for 32, going on 33 years. Grew up here in St. Johns County, and absolutely love the community that we are here serving. Love Council on Aging, and that's why we absolutely agreed to come on today and speak with you.
She is totally shortchanging herself, Brian. So I'm going to help her out a little bit.
I'm going to interject here. So I'm so nervous. I don't like things like this. I literally got in my car this morning and was driving out of the driveway, and I'm like, I can't see. Something's wrong with my eyes. I literally forgot to put my glasses on. That's how nervous I am.
Oh, no. Well, what I love about radio is nobody can see us.
No one can see us, right?
Nobody can see us.
Yes.
So you don't have to worry about what you look like, right? So it's just your voice out there. So and you have a great voice. So
I'm going to just help her out a little bit here too. Kendell, of course, currently serves on the Haven Hospice, board of directors.
Community hospice.
Community hospice.
Yes,
community hospice. My apologies. She knows exactly what I'm talking about here. And then also, too, of course, she was on the SMA board of directors for a while, too, as well. And she's been a nurse for almost 30 years. And she's served kind of all over St. Johns County. And I'm so proud of her because she's served, of course, our elderly here in St. Johns County before I went on my last war deployment back in 2003, 2004. She was at a local nursing home, of course. And then now she's working for the school district as a healthcare coordinator. Has about 70-something nurses under her, but just so proud of her. But, with her and I, just we're so invested in our community. And you say the word Council on Aging, and we'll say we'll be there. And so proud to finally be on the board of directors there. And this is something I've wanted to do in my career. And it's just the timing is right. But it was so difficult before that because I had so many other obligations. And I had to kind of clean my mess up a little bit and get my priorities straight to see where we wanted to be. So, of course, I'm your sheriff here in St. Johns County. I'm on my 3.5 years, actually, almost my fourth year. Before that, I was the City of St. Augustine Beach Chief for almost 8 years. We met, actually, our sophomore year of high school at a little Catholic school here called St. Joseph Academy.
Yeah.
Okay, so high school sweethearts.
Yes. Well, that's another radio show. This is Council on Aging show. But anyways, so our ties and our roots are here. And we're proud to tell you, too, we got two amazing men in our life. Our two sons, our 32-year-old son, Cole, is a Florida State graduate, went into law school and works for a company called Patagonia. He's engaged out there to a beautiful woman he met, of course, at Florida State. Our youngest son, Brett, is serving in the United States Army right now. He's a helicopter pilot, and he flies counter-drug operations. And his beautiful wife, actually, is a mental health director, and she's a licensed clinical social worker. So I just kind of put that in there because we just come in full circle to our family of the services we provide here in St. Johns County. And this is something that really, yes, I saw it in my professional law enforcement career for 30 years, but really it came to fruition to Kendell and I when we were at the St. Augustine Beach Police Department, where we had the ability to make those executive decisions to really get involved in our community. I don't remember, we were talking this morning when our first Centurion luncheon was. And we sat at a oh my goodness, we sat at a table with an elderly black female who was telling stories of 100 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Right.
And she was dolled up. She had her beautiful pearl earrings in and a beautiful pearl necklace. She just looked amazing. But yet she sat at that table, and we just, it kind of hit home with how precious our elderly are and what stories they can actually tell. So with that, again, we've just always been investing in our community with the elderly. Unfortunately, they get scammed. Of course, things happen to not just them, but everybody in our community. But it's one of those things where you just have those a little bit of extra paying attention and what more resources can we provide, which we're going to talk about today, Brian, as we go through your show. But that's a little bit about her and I. And she's nervous, but she'll warm up here in a minute. Yeah, she hasn't sipped on her coffee yet, which I'm waiting for that, because just like you and I, and they can't see us right now, you sip on your coffee and she'll get really fired up here.
Oh, there you go. We'll start drinking that coffee.
Yeah.
Yes.
But thank you for having us on this morning, Brian.
And you're also a military veteran, correct?
I am, yes, sir. Yeah, actually, when I first got out of my high school, I did what they call a split option back in 1988, and I went to basic training my summer year of between my junior year and senior year of high school. And then I came back home here to Florida, and then I decided to go full-time active duty military, which was the best thing that ever happened to me. I needed that discipline, of course, to get that structure in my life and really open my eyes to service to our country and our community. So I was serving at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and my high school sweetheart and I got back to, well, we always kept contact with each other, but just I was on the road quite a bit at Fort Bragg at the time. So I went to my war deployment to the Gulf War, of course, over from Saudi Arabia into Iraq into Kuwait. And, of course, we were linked up with mail that was 15 to 20 days behind.
Sure.
Yeah. And
I remember those days.
Yeah, seriously, right? And then, of course, we would always, if there was a phone station or a satellite phone, I'd call home, of course, and try to check on her and her mom. And just loved her mother. And so with that, of course, we got married as soon as we came home and had our first son, Cole, at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, at Army Womack Hospital. And the rest is history, 33 years of history in July. Yeah. But so I retired in 2018. So active duty, field work, combat deployments, came back home, in and out of the National Guard. And then finally in 2018, after 20 years of retirement and 25 years for pay, I retired from the military. And my last 6 years, it was the best gig I think I had besides my combat tours. But I was basically equivalent to a drill sergeant. They're called Black Hats. And the Black Hats basically are the ones that prepare men and women for their career as an officer in the United States Army. It's an 18-month-long program, and just fell in love with it. We were making young men and women that were physically going to war in Afghanistan and Iraq at the time. So great career. And our youngest son is serving, and we're truly blessed.
Sounds great. Well, I never served, but my dad was in the Marine Corps during the Korea War. He didn't actually wasn't there in Korea, but he served during that time frame. Played the trumpet. He was in the president's band.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of neat to hear him talk about that.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
And then my one brother retired as a lieutenant colonel out of the Air Force. I have a cousin that retired as a colonel with the Marine Corps. So I've been around the military.
All around it,
and, and definitely have a lot of respect for those.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that.
Served. So thank you for your service to our country.
Brian, as now you're starting to see, of course, the World War II veterans and the Korean War veterans, of course, and I hate to say it, but it's almost at the end of their, their terms per se. And then you're seeing the Vietnam era now, of course, get into their elderly ages. So this is something, of course, important that we'll talk about today with how many veterans are in St. Johns County, how many veterans are combat veterans or just veterans in general, and the services they're going to need and demand on this community, with us included, Council on Aging, of course, and the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office. So Kendall and I get involved in just as much veteran stuff as we get involved in Council on Aging stuff. And with that, it's just something personal and passionate to me. And these Vietnam vets have a special place in my heart. I'm sure they do with yours. But this country turned their back on them for majority of them when they came home. And every time we get a chance, of course, we give a standing ovation to these veterans that served in Vietnam, where we turned our back and didn't probably respect them coming home.
Yeah, great. Well, we have a lot to talk about this morning, but we have come to our time where we've got to take our first commercial break, so we're going to do that, and you are listening to the weekly radio show of the St. Johns County Council on Aging. We'll be right back after this commercial break. And welcome back to the weekly radio show, the St. Johns County Council on Aging, here on WFOY 102.1 FM, your local radio station for news, sports, and talk. I'm Brian Robinson, Program Director for COA, joined today by Rob and Kendell Hardwick, and we were just letting them tell all of you a little bit about themselves so that you know who they are if you don't already. And so we have a lot of different questions that we're going to be asking here in just a moment, but I do want to remind everybody out there listening that we have our centenarian luncheons coming up in the month of May, and that is for anybody 95 or older. So if you're out there listening today, you're 95 or better. That's how my wife likes to say it, or better. We would love to have you come be our guest. It's no cost to you. You can also bring somebody with you that doesn't cost them anything either. We just want to celebrate this milestone of you reaching this point in your life. But you do have to RSVP. So if you want to come to the one at our River House, you need to RSVP by April 24th. And if you want to come to the one at the Players Community Senior Center, you need to RSVP by May 1st. You can do that by calling 904-209-3700. When our receptionist answers the phone, just say, I'd like to get registered for the Centenarian Luncheon, and she'll connect you to the right person to make sure that happens. All right, so let's get into some of these questions that we have for you. And so what I did is I reached out to my staff, and I said, I have this great opportunity to interview Rob and Kendell Hardwick. Do you have any questions that you'd like to ask? And so they sent me these, and so we'll just kind of go through these and feel free to elaborate and make sure that our listeners understand it. The first one is just really kind of a simple question, but do your deputies refer seniors to St. Johns County Council on Aging for services?
Sure. So this kind of is a two-part question, or two-part answer, I should say. So yes, our deputy sheriffs, of course, are very well diverse and educated, of course, in the actual services that Council on Aging provide. And with that, of course, I also have a team that work directly for the Office of the Sheriff, and my community engagement team is kind of like an in-house referral service too as well. Something else we just added too is we added a co-responder program. Leslie Waller is our new co-responder, and that was something I've been wanting to do my entire career, where we have a co-responder riding with our deputy sheriffs. She actually wears a bulletproof vest. She wears a radio, but of course she's a social worker. And what she's doing now is we've identified a team of about 6 deputy sheriffs. There's a sergeant, a couple corporals in there, and those are the ones that kind of know how to use those kid gloves per se, and triage these incidents involving our elderly people. So what we're doing now is she was physically out yesterday, or day before yesterday, with Corporal Adam Hertz, and what they basically do is they're that additional resource on the street together to make sure we're providing those adequate services. So we've gone a step further than just having a deputy sheriff with referral services for counseling on aging. We teach them the services provided in they're brand new hired in the sheriff's office. They have about a 2.5-month classroom phase they do, and they do about a 2-month phase of actually in the patrol car with our deputy sheriffs as a training program, which we have some out there now. So educate them up front. And then, of course, as you go down the line, we continue to educate them, of course, on what services are out there. And it's not just Council on Aging, too, as well. It could be, EPIC, or it could be, Stuart Marchman, Behavioral Health Services. There is even some for-profit, businesses we use out there that just provide excellent services. So, yeah, this is an ongoing thing. So,
I was going to say, even and in-house, your care program that you do, the community advocacy program, and how I actually really became involved with the care program. I had a family member. Well, she was a friend of a family member, an elderly, and dependent on oxygen and not doing well, lived alone, and fire rescue. And the deputies were continuously responding to her house. And finally somebody said, we can come out and check on her. And it doesn't always have to be that 911 call. Well, fast forward, it helped because now they're going out with resources and they're connecting them to people like COA and other resources and Catholic charities and stuff like that throughout the community. It really helped her live by herself and prosper. And it was great to see that connection.
And you bring up the first responders having to go often, right? And I just want to give a shout out to our first responders because, one of the things that we have to do at our senior center is if somebody falls, like we have to call them. And I'm so thankful for them. Like, I'm so grateful for what they do because they always come. They have a good attitude about it. Like, because we can't, at the senior center, we can't if somebody falls, like we're not supposed to help them up. Like we have to let somebody come, the first responders come and do that. And so big shout out to them. So
Absolutely.
Well, the other thing too, I'm going to add to that too. Our first responders, whether it be fire EMS or of course our law enforcement first responders, they literally get a chance to kind of inspect the well-being of these individuals, especially our seniors too as well. They might be just called to an alarm call, or maybe they're at a suspicious person call a couple doors down where they're just knocking on doors and seeing what people have seen. Next thing you know, you're faced with, an elderly person, of course, or a person with some type of disabilities or mental health illness, and we're actually dealing with them, and we had a chance to triage saying they're not taking care of themselves. The inside of their residence doesn't look like they're taking their heat, or their water's off, their electricity's off, and now we become, what kind of services are we providing? Mm-hmm. So we're doing referrals and reaching out to, of course, whether it be our in-house co-responder or those deputy sheriffs that go above and beyond, or the sheriff that's on the board of directors, of course, for Council on Aging. So now we're doing that triaging, that social worker stuff that with de facto service we're providing, and we immediately can go ahead and provide services, whether it's our care program, our Safe Track program, or COA in general. We're going to find some type of umbrella services to provide to these people that are in need.
Mm-hmm. Well, and so that was one of the questions that I got from my staff is about the CARE program, which means community and advocacy resources for the elderly. So why don't we just go ahead and jump to that and talk a little bit more about that, if you would.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a phenomenal program where they go out to the homes and they meet with these individuals, and they talk about the resources that are available for them. They're visiting them. They it gives they sit there with them and listen to them and provide resources for them continuously, the elderly that they're visiting. Sue Warnberg and Mary Alice Colson are phenomenal. They're the ones that head this program. A great shout out to them. They're just phenomenal people doing this work continuously.
Yeah. We currently have 31 people actually in the program, with a couple pending. People come in and out of the program, of course, based on, of course, the resources provided for their loved ones or their caregivers. They may even move them. My wife and I talked about, of course, as my mother gets older, when do you make that decision to where you move them into the house? Of course, now they have full-time caregiving per se. But this program, of course, we have 2 veterans in there right now. Most of the program is females. Women in the program. It's a lot of people that are living alone, that are by themselves and kind of taking care of themselves. And I hate to use my mother as an example, but she's 81 years old this year, and eventually she's going to get to that level of, not that she can't take care of herself. She's very, very,
very independent.
Very independent. I'm glad you said that.
Yes.
But however, we know that down the road, all of us, just with time and aging, of course, we know that services are going to be provided. So when do we step in, of course, and provide additional things? So this is where we're actually looking for signs of exploitation, signs of abuse. Again, Sue Warnberg, she comes from a military family. Her husband, of course, is a former Navy veteran, served in the United States Navy. And then Mary Alice Colson has been with the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office for a long, long time and has that passion for people. So this is where our deputy sheriffs, back to your first question, or maybe identify somebody that's in this type of meets the criteria for the CARE program. And then, of course, then we do a little bit of extra love. But Kendell and I have delivered Easter egg baskets. We've delivered, some Christmas stuff to them.
Meals.
So it's, meals. Yeah, meals. It's been pretty powerful, actually, during Thanksgiving.
Right.
So this is just a little bit of extra love and attention, of course, by our people that work in the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office. And we want families to know that, and we did the same program called Checks at the St. Augustine Beach Police Department, and we had just as many people as we have here at the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office. I think we had 30 at one time over there.
Right.
And it was even sometimes going there, Brian, and just taking their garbage out or taking their recycling bin out, because one lady in St. Augustine Beach, her light bulbs weren't being changed because she can't get up on that little 2-step ladder. Just little quality
and she probably
issues.
Shouldn't.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah,
you don't want her to fall.
But perfect. So just those little things, of course, and we just have the people in the right place that are actually providing population for our most vulnerable people in society, which is our elderly. And it's that extra bit of little love, of course, in the CARE program.
All right. Well, that music is our cue that it's time for another commercial break already. So we're going to do that. We'll be right back right after these messages. All right. When the Ramones come on, you know that you're listening to the weekly radio show of the St. Johns County Council on Aging. Welcome back. I'm Brian Robinson, Program Director for COA, here on WFOY 102.1 FM, your local radio station for news, sports, and talk. Joined today by Rob and Kendell Hardwick. And we are just going through asking some different questions about all the different programs that are available to our seniors through the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office. And, of course, talking about what we provide as well through St. Johns County Council on Aging. So one of the other questions that came from one of my staff is, she wanted to know, when is the Special Loved One Registry going to be available in St. Johns County? And so I did a little bit of research on it.
Yeah.
Senate Bill 784, called Protect Our Loved Ones Act, went into effect January 1st of this year.
Yep.
And so I just wonder if you would tell our listeners a little bit more about that and what is the status of it.
So basically, this St. Johns County Sheriff's Office, we developed a program over the last 2 years, which we'll kind of talk about in a minute. So we kind of got ahead of this Florida state statute that's now in effect, of course, as you said, Brian, January of this year. But it's basically anyone with developmental or psychological disabilities that qualifies for the registry. The statute's pretty clear on actually who's in there. This can include, but is not limited to, people with dementia, Alzheimer's, of course, autism, or mental disorder. So that kind of eliminates a certain age group. I think it's all the above. Mm-hmm. So what we did here in St. Johns County, we are physically in the process of rolling something out as we speak that's going to not just meet the Florida state statute, but exceed and kind of put together what we've already been advertising. We had discussed about 2 years ago, this was a statewide initiative, actually about a year ago, this was a statewide initiative, a national initiative of identifying these individuals by stickers. And the sticker can be possibly on that glass window outside the front door, on the car, where the child or the adult, of course, is in or often is in or moving around St. Johns County. So that was one of the initiatives that we actually did. And again, if I'm not mistaken, I want to say it was Seminole County Sheriff Dennis Lima, just off the top of my head, but I might be wrong. So we're in the process of actually doing that. We're going to roll it out very, very soon. But also, we're doing that through our Safe Track program, through our CARE program. Of course, the beach is doing it through the CHECKS program that I started when I was the chief over there with my staff. So I think we're doing this. We're just going to do it, of course, in accordance with the Florida state statutes. But this is something we're excited about, so we're rolling it out very, very soon. It'll be in partnership with the COA, too, as well, because you have a database that's going to identify a lot of people that would not be in the law enforcement database. Mm-hmm. And I know we kind of talked about that word flag. I hate that word when people are being flagged in our system, because there are times like we flag law enforcement. If you're a law enforcement person in our county, whether you're state, local, or federal government, we also identify, of course, other people in the area that might have some type of mental health illness or something that might put us in a situation with them where we got to really come to the scene knowing we need to de-escalate immediately, because we don't want to press that person in, of course, the extreme measures of hurting themselves or hurting somebody else. So we're doing it. We're looking forward to rolling this out together and with our partnership with COA and other people in St. Johns County. So thank you for asking that question, too, because it actually put me in research mode this morning, because I want to know what we were doing. But I figured we were already ahead of this, which is nice. It's nice when you're a leader and your people are already doing some of the initiatives that, Kendall and I talk about a lot of things and with our staff about things that we want to do. And I don't want to get off topic here, but she is on the kick now. We need to do another special needs ball field for our kids in St. Johns County that are playing under the Field of Dreams. I mean, there's 248 kids on one field that play Friday through Sunday morning, for goodness sakes, because there's too many kids. So her initiative now, let's go ahead and build a field in southern St. Johns County, which she's got the grassroots. We're full steam ahead. But anyways, back on this. Anything else you need to add to that, Kendall?
No. I think you hit all the key topics.
And I think it's great that it's, there's some sort of way to identify, right? And because when you think of something going on physically, right? Yeah. So somebody has a broken arm, right? Yeah. They're in a sling or they have a cast on. You can identify that. That's easy, right? But when it comes to mental health or cognitive issues, that's not as easy to identify. And so it's great that we have something in place so that when you're coming up to that person, ahead of time, whether that person's dealing with a mental health issue or whether it's a cognitive issue such as dementia.
Sure.
So that's, I'm so glad that this is taking place. So another question that kind of ties into that is, do your deputies receive special training on handling individuals with dementia?
First of all, like we talked about a little while ago, of course, when our deputy sheriffs come into the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office, brand new, and just not to insult anybody's intelligence, but they have 72 or 720 hours of the basic training in the police academy to be a law enforcement officer. But then we need to teach them how to be a deputy sheriff in St. Johns County. And this is no insult to my brothers and sisters in other agencies, but you got to know how to treat our people in St. Johns County as a deputy sheriff, especially when you wear this uniform and this badge, because it takes on a much bigger role. So you learn a lot of things, of course, from everything from de-escalation, of course, and dealing with resources and people with dementia and Alzheimer's and autists. There's so many things out there now, and these are the ones that have names to them. There's a lot of things out there we can't put a name to them. We just kind of guess and go, we think this is what it is. We don't know what it is. We're not social workers. So yes, we train as much as we can, but also too we rely on our partnerships too. With again, I'm going to keep on saying Council on Aging. It's our in having that first responder, that co-responder, riding with our deputy sheriffs that puts that extra touch on having a true social worker with us. But this also goes to the next level, too, as well. What are we doing different inside of our jail? Providing these services, providing these outreach programs, these pre-entry programs, these re-entry programs. We have to consider all these things when we talk about what are we doing different in the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office and the rest of the country is not doing. So I think we're above and beyond that with teaching our people, but it's not just a single pamphlet we can give to our deputy sheriffs going, and by the way, here's the identifiers for autistic, here's the identifiers for dementia. Go ahead.
Correct. No, you're right. You're right.
I mean, you're in the medical field, so I mean, Kendell used to come home and talk about how she worked in a nursing home. There's not one definition for one patient. There's no way.
No. And just like this, you can't lump them all into one category. So what you're doing is identifying and then getting the resources that they need. So I love how this is being rolled out.
I think so
it's
too.
not lumped under. I mean, yes, it's under one. It's under one program with multiple entities working together to provide the services needed.
It's almost like you take a person that is a licensed clinical social worker. And I run a lot of stuff by my daughter-in-law, because she is one of those. And all the time, I mean, she doesn't have that generic answer like, that's psychotic, that's mental health, that's substance abuse. I mean, she rattles off these terms and stuff. I'm kind of like, we shouldn't know that. I mean, as a deputy sheriff. But I think we've come a long, long ways, and I think we are teaching our people to respond properly. But I think the biggest thing is we're teaching our people, if you respond properly and don't have an answer, you got to find an answer. Use your resources, because you're going to run into that situation that it's not cookie cutter. Nothing is. And that's why this job is so special. Every situation we respond to is different than the last one. Even a traffic stop. You can do 100 traffic stops today, and not one traffic stop is ever going to be the same ever again. So I think this goes back to the same question you asked here. What are we doing different to train our deputy sheriffs with dementia and Alzheimer's? But it's a big picture than that. It's mental health illness. It's psychotic issues. It's VA people that are going through PTSD, whether they're VA or not. You're dealing with people that just lost. I mean, there's so many bigger things in this picture, but I think we're doing a good job with it.
Well, and I like how you bring up the fact that, like, every situation's different.
Yeah.
And that's what we discover with our seniors, and every situation is different. And each person has their own story, right? Each person has been through different experiences.
Yeah.
So it's not a cookie cutter way of being able to handle their situation. It varies from person to person.
Yeah. Well, Brian, people like you and your wife, of course, are special people that had a calling to work for Council on Aging. So thank you for what you do.
Well, thank you. All right. Music means another break. We'll be right back after these commercial messages. And welcome back to the weekly radio show, the St. Johns County Council on Aging, here on WFOY 102.1 FM, your local radio station for news, sports, and talk. Joined today by Rob and Kendell Hardwick, and we've been talking about all types of different programs that we have through the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office that are related to our seniors here in St. Johns County. One of the things I wanted to jump to next, if you could just touch upon briefly, because we're going to run out of time.
I know.
The Senior versus Crime Project, you brought that back to life in St. Johns County. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, super excited, actually. And this is something Kendell and I, we brought to the St. Augustine Beach Police Department, and just through attrition and stuff like that, the program was kind of moved down to Flagler County. So I wanted to bring that initiative back. This was a program actually started by the Attorney General's office back in 1989. Now there's currently 40 offices. It was an educational piece. So this is an educational piece now with basically a bunch of volunteers that look into some types of scams, basically, of the elderly. So currently we just brought in a brand new office manager that was appointed by Attorney General Ashley Moody. He's currently in place, which is Joel Cooper. He's a former assistant attorney general from the state of New York with 45 years of banking experience. So he is on board right now. The other one didn't leave under under his own circumstances. Had some family things he had to deal with in Orlando, and actually had to move down to Orlando. He was a retired FBI agent. So we're up and running, super excited about it. It's an educational piece. It's an investigative piece. We help you out, of course, with some of these things that are possibly civil, possibly criminal. It's a partnership, and again, we're super excited. So you can go on our webpage, click on the Seniors versus Crime, and we're up and running, and excited about having, of course, business and helping out our most vulnerable, our elderly people.
Yeah, and there's a lot of scams out there.
By far.
A lot of scams
Yeah,
out
we
there.
could talk a whole show on that one.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so so that we don't run out of time, I want to jump into a topic that is a little bit controversial.
Sure.
Reading it and trying to understand it is not easy.
It's not.
And that's the Baker Act. In March of last year,
Yep.
we received a couple complaints from 2 dementia caregivers. As you know, one of the things that we do is caregiver support through Council on Aging. And they had just basically, expressed that their loved ones who have dementia were Baker acted.
Yes, sir.
And they were just kind of walking through that situation was not a good experience for them. So I was just wondering if you could let our listeners know what the Baker Act is.
Sure.
And when it is used on people with dementia.
First of all, this is a law enforcement gray area for us that I hate to tell you that we got to clean it up. And I mean we as in general, law enforcement across the state, because the statute is so muddy and it continues to change. As soon as we get educated on the updates, 2019, 2007, 2004, there were updates, legislature changed. There were changes actually made on the floors of the Senate and the House to these bills at the last minute based on just plain verbiage, which makes it even more muddier. And I hate to say this, most of our legislators, they're big supporters, of course, of Kendell and I and our agency, but a lot of them are lawyers, and they write it in law terms. So real quick, when under the definitions in Florida State Statutes 394.455, it basically defines mental illness. And I'm not going to read the whole thing in there, but in there it does say, for the purposes of this part under Florida State Statute, this term does not include developmental disabilities as defined in Chapter 393. There's a whole bunch in there, but the key one, of course, as you know, is conditions manifested only by dementia. So there's the muddy area, only by dementia. So here you take a deputy sheriff on a scene of a loved one, and we're not social workers. I'm not sure, me included, can properly define dementia. We know it's kind of the top part of the spear, and then under that you have all those things you just mentioned, Brian, off the air, that we don't know. So with that, again, we're trying to make that determination. With a Baker Act, it's involuntarily or voluntarily in that aspect, where you can basically be seen for a mental illness. And we just described under Florida State statute what mental illness is, excluding dementia standalone only. So we can basically take you into custody using minimal restraint, basically, to get you help for some type of mental illness. And then in Florida State Statute 394.463, it talks about what the involuntary examination actually is and who can actually. So again, it's not well defined for us. We don't keep a whole lot of records on it. Last year, I'll tell you, we did 425 Baker Acts in St. Johns County. It doesn't sound like a lot. That's a lot. We have a large population. Yes, I get it. But 425 Baker Acts, sometimes I'm proud of that, but sometimes also, too, we need to dig probably a little bit deeper into that to see what are we doing. So I apologize to those people, and I know apology is probably not enough, but that just tells us we need to educate ourselves better in this profession, which we're going to make ourselves better in St. Johns County, and not use the Baker Act or misuse the Baker Act for people that are suffering for, again, that definition of mental illness, but we'll just keep talking about dementia.
Yeah, and it is very challenging. I just completed a program through Johns Hopkins University for the Dementia Care Specialist certification.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And one of the things that they bring up is there are a lot of people who never get the diagnosis on dementia. So, so their caregiver might be there whenever you're called.
Yes, sir.
But they never actually got the diagnosis of dementia. So, so that kind of muddies the water a little bit as well.
Well, you take the population of the state of Florida, let's just use 23 million people. They're saying now that this is from Department of Children and Families, that 580,000 people in the state of Florida are diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. You just said it. Those are the ones that are physically diagnosed and say they have the disease. What are the ones we don't know have that disease? And by the way, when we check out with that person at 2 o'clock in the morning and the caregiver has called us because something is not right in the household, we get there, we don't have a registry. We can actually check and say this person's on the Alzheimer's disease list, but so now we're good to go. We can't Baker Act that person. It doesn't work like that. We have to kind of triage the situation and figure out what we can provide for that service at the time, at that night, to make sure everybody's protected and safe.
So let's kind of jump to another topic here, another question I was asked. So there was a report by floridacourts.gov, and it states that abuse against elders is underreported. It is estimated that for every case that is reported, 24 are not. So I thought that was a staggering statistic.
It is.
And so I'm kind of wondering, like those who are out there listening right now, if they suspect an elder that is being abused, and they're kind of on the fence. Do I report it? Do I not report it? Like, what would be your advice to that person? Like, when should they go ahead and reach out and report that they think an elder is being abused?
Well, I'm going to say never hesitate to report. I mean, that's their job. They want to respond. But go ahead, because I just don't hesitate.
Well, you're dead on too as well. And this is, by the way, our elderly population is so much smarter and wiser. Of course, I'm just being honest with you, because they've lived through so much in our society and through, of course, this country and what they've seen in the world. They're sometimes embarrassed to call. This morning at 6:05 a.m., I got a text message from a close friend of mine who lives in the north part of the county. It says, "Good morning, Sheriff Hardwick. One of our residents got a call from a person claiming to be Officer Chris Collins." I have a Lieutenant Chris Collins that works for me, by the way. He told the resident that he had missed a court appearance and that they needed to contact him right away to correct the situation. Luckily, the sheriff, the resident knows the sheriff's office and called him. He told our resident that this situation was a scam and that one lady in Ponte Vedra had been cheated out of $15,000. "I'm writing to you just to keep you aware of this." And I said, "Immediately report this." Once again, here we are. So I get a text at 6 o'clock, and him and I are very close friends, but that doesn't help our situation. So I immediately said, "Hey, I need you to send me an email. We're going to get the reporting system going." So unfortunately, our seniors are so smart, but also, too, they're like, "I'm not going to waste y'all's time on this. I know I was scammed. I'm embarrassed about it, and I don't want to call you." So it goes right back to your data saying they're not going to report it. Yeah, because it's a pride thing.
Sure.
But it's not a pride thing. Even the youth get scammed out of stuff. We're watching that happen all the time. So as Kendell said a minute ago, we immediately tell you to call. If you don't want to call the 911 number, it's okay. Call the non-emergency number, the 824-8304. Or if you're friends with the sheriff, which half the county has my personal cell phone number, send me a text at 6:05. And I immediately said, send me an email, and I'll get my team tapped into what actually happened. So it's so unfortunate that Kendall and I are physically watching people get milked out of their assets and their retirement they've saved their whole life and waited for, because these sick individuals are taking advantage of not just the vulnerable, of everybody.
Well, and they're very good at what they do.
I have to agree.
You know, I got a text message the other day, and it said they're trying to pretend to be my bank, and they said somebody in Arizona has used your debit card. Click here to whatever, right? And I was like, okay, well, it's very rare that my bank does that. So thankfully, I have the app, my banking app, on my phone. So I just pulled it up, and there was nothing. Right? Because there's always the pending charges that I can look at. Nobody. So they were basically wanting me to click on something that then they probably would have asked me for my bank routing number and personal information, and then they would have got right into my bank account.
Right.
And so
it's crazy.
Yeah. So my advice, I talked a little bit about this last week on the show. Some of these different scams was, if you get something like that, reach out to who they say they are.
Yes.
Right. Call your bank directly,
or call us,
or call the sheriff's department. Yeah.
And that's where Seniors versus Crime is going to come into as well. And a couple things I wanted to actually talk about. These are our most common right now. Fraud, especially dealing with the elderly, is increasing on a daily basis. You just talked about it. Mostly very unusual stuff, falling for a romance where they can't come see you right now because they're deployed with the United Kingdom government. Do not buy from people you've never known or never have heard of before, especially gift cards. That's our biggest scam. Send us Target gift cards. Your grandson's in jail in Texas. The bail bond scam is the biggest one we've seen right now, where they're actually reaching out to you. They can follow this stuff. It's all public record of who's arrested, where people live at. It's just too easy. So someone actually called from Microsoft, and they'll say their child's pornography is on their computer. If they don't pay them, they're not going to take it off. So that's things we just need to look out for. So call the sheriff's office, 911 or 824-8304, and report everything.
All right, that music means that it is time for our show to end. Thank you both so much for being with us and being our guest this morning.
Thank you very much. Have a great day, everybody.
Yes.